Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Sarah and today's guest is Dr. Gabor Shomalai. We're going to be talking about deuterium, but on this channel there are already at least 6 videos on deuterium with interviews with Gabor and also Dr. Laszlo Boros and Stephanie Seneff, as well as simple explainer deuterium videos for people who've never heard of it before. So very briefly, deuterium is a heavy isotope of hydrogen, and because it's larger than hydrogen and different, it has profound effects on biology. And Gabor's speciality is deuterium and cancer, and he's worked in this field for 30 years. Gabor's going to go over some new research, and it's a 2025 paper because it's very important to see the scientific data in relation to cancer treatments. And he's going to walk you through that to show how long you should be doing a deuterium depletion, but also when diagnosed cancer patients need to start a deuterium depletion because time and duration are very important. We also discuss other aspects of how deuterium plays a role in cancer because it acts as a molecular switch. And Gabor also goes through briefly some of his protocols, and also he highlights how it's possible to get hold of him because he's got papers on ResearchGate. He has a company. He's a very nice, approachable man, and I've put the links in the description. So I'll hand you over to Gabor now. Welcome back to the channel, Gabor, for the third time. And I know you've got lots of exciting new research to share with us. Just for people who've never met you before and don't know anything about deuterium and your 30 years of study on deuterium and cancer, do you want to give the new people a quick overview and just remind the people who've been following you and us where you're at?
Okay, thank you for having me. Yeah, the starting point is a very simple question. We know that there is a heavy hydrogen beside the normal hydrogen, and that hydrogen concentration in our body is 6 times higher than the calcium level, 10 times higher than the magnesium level, and never was investigated whether it has any possible role in the living organism. So this is what I started to investigate at the National Institute of Oncology more than 30 years ago. Yeah, so it's clear that for the concept that we are going to develop cancer drug with a pure deuterium-depleted water, we couldn't find funding because nobody believed that that could be real and that should be a real way to solve the cancer problem. So to solve the funding problems, we had to come out with products, and selling our products, all the revenue was invested to the research, toxicology, safety. We set up facility to produce deuterium-depleted water according to GMP rules. So all the revenue we generated was put back, and this is the reason we can say we are in a clinical stage. And for today, in several countries, research institutes or universities are working on that research field and investigating the possible role and the role of the deuterium in the living organism. So this is where we are now after 30 years of research and investment to reach finally the registered drug status. So the only aim can be to be on the market with deuterium depleted drugs, and that should be part of the oncotherapy. We do not believe that we replace, and we have to replace the existing therapy. We have to integrate deuterium depletion into the existing therapy. And our last paper, what we published, was just about to summarize all the data, what we collected, and evaluating 2,649 cancer patients who consumed DW beside receiving the conventional therapy. So this is where we are now, and this is about the last paper we published.
And I think the reason people, including me, should support you is that when you get it licensed, it means that people who can't afford it or are very sick will be able to get deuterium depleted water. I would just say, well, I'll just say on prescription or give it, because there's different medical systems in different countries. But the whole point of getting it registered is so that people who don't have the funds to purchase would have access to something that's not toxic, benefits them, and actually is going to give them a better quality of life and a longer quality of life. When we did our second podcast, you presented the data and it covered lots of different kinds of cancer, and that's up on this channel. I also put it in a Substack so people can go over it and look at the all of the slides that you provided, because I think sometimes it's easier to see the data. So what we're going to do now is Gabor's very kindly prepared some slides to talk about a paper that's a 2025 paper, just because I think it's easier sometimes to look at the data, and because this is such an important subject about cancer and deuterium depleted water.
So the basic of this publication is those data that we slowly collected since 1992, when the first paper started to consume deuterium depleted water. And the last paper who was part of this evaluation was enrolled in 2024. So the number of the patients is 2,649, and 46.3% is males and 56% is females. Here is the average age, the median age, and the median weight, which just represent this is nothing. So that's involve even child, and even very old people, but this is a median numbers for the age and the weight. And the next slide shows, so we could make different groups. One basic distribution of the people, whether they have a tumor at the beginning of starting to consume DW or they were in remission. So we had 256 people who had been diagnosed, they were treated, they were operated, and they were tumor-free. But despite of that fact that they were tumor-free, they consumed deuterium-depleted water. On the other hand, we had 2,393 patients who had cancer when they started to consume DW. And you can see the ratio between males and females. And the other big two groups that we lost 609 patients during the follow-up time, and we had 2,040 patients who were alive when we stopped and closed this database. So the next slide, please. And this is maybe the very most important to show what type of population we are dealing with. Because if we see the cumulative follow-up time of the patients between the diagnosis and starting the deuterium depleted water, it's 4,220 years, which means the average time between the diagnosis and the start of DW consumption is 19 months. And this is a very bad news, which means that most of the people had been treated several times. Maybe they were in remission, but relapsed. So we cannot say that patient population is in an early stage and in a very having very good prognosis. And the next block shows that the cumulative DDW consumption time was over 700 years. And even after they stopped consuming, there was over 2,771 years follow-up time. And the whole cumulative time for this population is 9,690 years. So we have a very long period of time to follow the people, and that makes very, very accurate our data, because this is not a phase 2 clinical study involving the patients and following them for 6 months, 9 months, and after making the evaluation. So just because there are two starting points, the one when the tumor was diagnosed, and the other point when they started to consume DW. So because that, we evaluated the median survival time and calculated from both date, from the start of diagnosis and from start consuming DW. So the next slide shows
Can I just clarify something here? Just for
Yes, go
people
ahead.
who find it hard to follow scientific data, first of all, they need to understand that there's over 2,500 human patients, and some of them had already had cancer and were in remission, and then the other ones you were saying did have a tumor. And you're also saying that these are quite serious cases. Is that correct? Because I think people get confused at this idea of the how many years, because it's really important data.
Mhm.
Would you just be able to maybe explain a little bit in more detail for somebody who doesn't understand scientific research what 5,480 years means?
Understand? Okay.
Yeah.
So the when we talk about, for example, the 4,210 years cumulative follow-up time, it means if we take all the patients from the time they were followed from the date of diagnosis, still the start of deuterium depletion, altogether that would be 4,220 years. So everybody spent 19 months uh, uh, between these 2 days. They were diagnosed, and the average 19 months later, everybody started to consume DW. So this is, and involving all the 2,600 patients, this is 4,210 years. And it means everybody, the average on the next block, consumed 12 months deuterium depleted water. So roughly all the patients consumed for a year DW, but this is the average. So there were people who consumed maybe for 1 month, 2 months, and there are others who consume for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. And the average is 1 year per patient. And then the last block is 6.6 months. So after stop consuming DW, there was half a year we could follow the patients. But we have patients who is followed after for 20 years after stop drinking DW, but there was most of them maybe we followed only for 1 month or 2 months after stop drinking DW. So these are, and the 9,690 years cumulative follow-up time. So if we take it one by one, the patients from the diagnosis to the end of the follow-up and add it, all the patients, finally it's 9,690 years we could cover in the last, let's say, 35 years since we started collecting these data. I hope that makes it
Yeah.
more clear.
Yes, so I think you did mention before that some of these people didn't get the deuterium depleted water till quite late in their diagnosis, so that's important.
Yeah.
And then people took it for a slightly different amount of time, and then some of the group then stopped taking deuterium depleted water, and you followed those patients as well. So there's a huge amount of information and data in here. But yes, I think I found that clear, and
Yeah, and this is what I will show you just in detail in the next couple of slides about these parameters that you just mentioned.
Okay, that's great. So we'll carry on.
Okay. Yeah, so that slide shows the distribution of this population. It means we had 529 patients was diagnosed with digestive tumor, over 400 with breast, over 400 with lung cancer. The next column shows the distribution, how many percent they represent, and the last column shows the distribution of the cancer patients in the Hungarian population. And if you compare the second and the last column, we can see that our cancer population represent the Hungarian cancer population roughly. The gynecological population is underrepresented, but the brain cancer is overrepresented. But anyway, these numbers roughly we can say cover those cancer populations which is present in Hungary. Here we shows the median survival time calculating from the from the date of diagnosis. And the median survival time is a number which we can say that 50% of the population is still alive. So if we check the Hungarian cancer population, the median survival time is about 2.4 years. That's somewhat higher in Western Europe, and in the United States, it should be about 2.8 or 3 years, the median survival time. And the next slide to it shows the Pearson correlation, which shows very clear correlation. So that slide shows if we calculate the median survival time from the start drinking DDLW. Of course, this is much shorter because most of the people had a long history before starting to drink DDLW. So this is 7.6 years, the median survival time, which is still threefold or twofold increase comparing to the control or the people who just receive conventional therapy. So without any other evaluation, this is a very big increase in the median survival time because the last 92 cancer patients can increase the median survival time with 2.4 months. So integrating deuterium depletion into the existing therapy, that can cause 3 to 4-fold increase in median survival time based upon these slides. So that means that should be a real breakthrough in cancer therapy. The next slide, please. So here is, say, making the two big groups. The whole, as I showed you earlier, the median survival time calculating from the start to DW it was 7.6 months. But we separate the populations, those who had cancer and those who are in remission. So those who had cancer, the median survival time is getting shorter, 5.8 years. But those who were in remission, the median survival time, they were in remission, it's 23.2 years. Again, that shows if somebody had been diagnosed and they were treated and tumor-free, if they consume deuterium-depleted water, we can prevent relapse and we can get a more than tenfold increase in median survival time. But those who had cancer, at that calculation was 5.8 years. So the question was, please the next slide.
Oh, I just wanted to pause here because what you've just said is extremely important. So first of all, I think for people who are in remission, some people think deuterium depleted water is a treatment only. So you're suggesting that it could also be preventative for a return of cancer, because I think anybody who's had cancer or a loved one who's had cancer, there's always that fear, what if it comes back? So that's correct to say that we should be talking about it as a prevention. But as you mentioned at the beginning, you're fighting hard to get it as a licensed actual treatment or for cancer. So I just wanted to pause there because I think sometimes certain bits of information are so important, and I didn't want all of people to just move on quickly and not realize how important this work is.
Again, thank you. It is very important because that would be the best way and fastest way to reduce the cancer mortality, because it's well known if somebody had been diagnosed with cancer, even they are tumor free, they have a very, very big chance to relapse. But repeating DW cure for 3-4 months every year, every second year, that way we can prevent the relapse. So yeah, thank you for pointing out. So the next question was, which are the key parameters which are essential and which is necessary to maximize the efficacy of DW? So in that slide, we checked what was the number of the death case in the first month, second month, third month. And the first column shows that in the first month, we lost 6 people, the second month, 10 people, third month, 12, and at the first month, 44 and 39 people, patients were lost. The next slide shows what is the time frame between the diagnosis and and the start DW consumption. And it shows that those 44 patients who died within 4 months, it was 20 months, the median survival time between the average time between diagnosis and DW, which means they were treated, they were in a late stage, they had metastasis in several organs. So that means, and the last column shows the length of DW consumption. So those who died in the first 2-3 months, they consumed for 0.5 months or 2 months, which means we didn't have time and we didn't have chance to intervene and to use the DW so long to get the effect. So the first conclusion was that we need at least, for the patients, need at least 3-4 months life expectancy to have a chance for the DW. And the next slide, please. Here is what I want to prove. So when we take out from the calculation those people who died in the first, second, third, and the other months, so we started from 2006, 393, and we take out the 6 people. And the last column shows the median survival time from the start of DW consumption. That was 70 months. The next 70 months, 71 months. But it increased to 74, 76, and 78 months. So if we take out from the population those who died in the first 3, 4, 5 months, the median survival time increased from 70 months for 76 or 78 months. And it's critical. The DW is not a cure-all. So we cannot say that everybody who drinking DW will be cured. It's very important the stage when the patients start to consume DW. And one conclusion was we need that 3-4 months median survival time to 3-4 months life expectancy to have chance with DW. This is the slide when we checked the length of the DW consumption. So in that 2,649 cancer population, everybody was involved, even those who consumed DW only for 1 month or 2 months or 1 week or 2 weeks. So what happened if we take out those whose DW consumption was short, and what is the critical time frame they had to consume DW. So in the first column, again, or the last column, you can see if everybody is involved, the median survival time from DW consumption is 70 months. If we take out those who consumed DW longer than 30 days, then still 70 months, the median survival time. The next column, longer than 60 days, longer than 90 days, and then you can see if the patient had consumed longer than 90 days or 120 days, then the median survival is increasing from 70 to 74 or 78. And even they consume longer and longer, they live longer, and we can increase it. So that was the other conclusion, that the people should consume it, the DW, at least for 3 months or 4 months. And it doesn't mean that that way we can close the treatment or we can cure the people, but this is a minimum consumption time necessary to see the efficacy of DW.
Okay, that's also just to sum up here. We've previously said that the sooner people start using the DDW, the better. And then this data now shows that the longer people use it for, it is also very important in the mean survival rate.
Yes,
Right.
this is a Hungarian one, but this is what summarizes it. On the third point of this evaluation, which is very important, we checked the people, what is the minimum time necessary to start DW consumption after the diagnosis. And here I wrote it that it should be shorter than 9 months. So when somebody was diagnosed and within 9 months started to consume DW, then we could have a very big increase in median survival time. So this is also very important. This is the 3 point: the length of DW consumption, uh, the minimum life expectancy when the patient start to DW, and the minimum time uh, which elapses between the diagnosis and the DW consumption. And it should be shorter than 9 months. So this is a key conclusion of the paper what we published.
So that's also very important because sometimes people can spend 6 months doing research on something. And I also want to emphasize about the deuterium depleted water. It's very easy to do because all people have to do is dilute the water. And I just want to ask quickly here, just to clarify with you, deuterium depleted water is compatible with all other treatments people are receiving. And in these patients, were some of them receiving other treatments as well?
Yeah, this is the key issue. So we have seen very strong synergistic effect between radiotherapy and DW consumption. We have seen very good connection between several targeted drugs. So when the drug is targeting EGFR receptors, it's very good combining with DW. The patients who is planning to operate, if there are 2-3 weeks before the operation, drinking DW, then the operation will be much easier. The tumor is getting more smaller and much easier to remove the healthy tissue from the cancer tissue. And there are several other good combinations. We have published with papers combining chemotherapy and DW, and we could prove it that the DW increase the efficacy of chemotherapy. So one way should be they can decrease the dose of the chemotherapy, that way reducing the toxicity and even still keep the efficacy of the treatment. So it is very important that the DW never will replace all the therapy. Just we have to find the best combination to maximize the efficacy of DW in the combination of the existing therapy.
I think with deuterium depleted water, a lot of people who don't have cancer use it, including athletes and biohackers. So it makes sense that just using deuterium depleted water when somebody is having a very difficult treatment like chemo or radiotherapy, it provides other benefits for the person's well-being, because also people do ketogenic diets as well. In relation to cancer, lots of benefits to ketogenic diets that are separate from cancer. So I just wanted to emphasize here that there's multiple reasons why deuterium depleted water would make going through cancer, which is very sort of difficult for a person, possibly easier. And you've provided also the clinical data to show it actually does help people live longer. And as you pointed out, there's lots of other research. We can't go into it now because we'll go off on a tangent, but there's plenty of other studies when you've looked at deuterium depleted water in combination with different conventional therapies. So,
And that would be the last slide I want to show you that. So let's go on the last column. The last column, first number shows 7.6 years. So this is a median survival time for the whole cancer population we evaluated. We evaluated different numbers of the population depending on how they consume DW, what was the time what was the time elapsed between the diagnosis and the DW consumption, and all these parameters. So, and that shows the most important: start drinking DW as close as possible, close to the date of diagnosis. So the sooner we be part of the DW consumption of the conventional therapy, the bigger will be the chance to get a complete response and increase the survival time. Means that the cancer mortality should be reduced with 80%. 80%, 75, 80%. So, and this is a other key message of the paper. We must integrate DW into the existing therapy, and that will be the only way to finally get some breakthrough in the cancer therapy. That means we can get a reduction in the cancer mortality 75, 80%.
Yes, that's very important. I'm just going to, for people who, like my mother, who might find it hard to follow scientific data, I think the very important row here is the control. So there's 70,000 people in here, and the medium lifespan is 2.4 years. So I think just for people who are not so familiar with looking at scientific research, it's very, very clear to show how much of an effect the deuterium depleted water has. And then, as you also have reiterated so many times, that if people start within 9 months, so the earlier possible, it's gone all the way up to 11.3. So I think that's a very important statistic as well. Is there anything else you wanted to add, just sort of explaining in very simple terms to people, comparing 2.4 to maybe the 6 and the 8, and then we can move on?
So, yeah, so the reason that we have so many different numbers is that this cancer population was extremely heterogeneous. Mm-hmm. And it is not a prospective study when we write a protocol and we decide what type of patients can be enrolled into the study. So in that case, they are in the same stage, they are the same tumor, they have the same conventional therapy, and on the placebo arm and the treated arm, they receive some kind of therapy. So in our case, it was extremely heterogeneous regarding the cancer type, the staging, and the conventional therapy. And the aim of this evaluation was to figure out which way we can move forward and which parameters we have to focus. And this is what we can conclude. How long? So it is also very important. People sometimes, so there are so many alternative therapy, and people may start to consume DW, but if they, after 3 months, say, okay, it is not good enough for me, and they quit and start with another conventional therapy, they still not wait for the time to see the efficacy and to see the positive results of the DW consumption. So keep drinking and integrate into the existing therapy, and then you have a big chance in the fight against cancer.
I want to thank my sponsor, Lightwater Scientific, who helped me deliver free, valuable information to you and also allow me to have great guests on this channel. Lightwater Scientific produce the purest and most deuterium-depleted water in the world. Depleting or lowering your deuterium has numerous health benefits, from better metabolic health, more energy, greater resilience, less brain fog, increased physical performance, enhanced healing, and healthier mitochondria. Deuterium is an isotope of hydrogen, also known as heavy water, because it's bigger and heavier than regular hydrogen. Even though deuterium makes up only 0.02% of hydrogen, it's found everywhere. Deuterium is a burden to your body because it interferes with the intricate chemical reactions that occur by slowing them down. Deuterium is kryptonite to your mitochondria, and we need healthy mitochondria to produce energy. There's over 60 years of scientific research on the negative effects of too much deuterium on health, and also the positive benefits of lowering deuterium in the body. Lightwater deuterium-depleted water is 100% safe and non-toxic. In fact, it's the closest in structure to the metabolic water that your mitochondria produce. Lightwater deuterium-depleted water comes in 5 or 10 parts per million glass or plastic bottles, so level up your health by leveling down your deuterium today. The purchase link is in the show notes, and use code Dr. Sarah for a discount off your order. Yes, because even if we just make the numbers simple, 0.1 or the 6s, that's sort of almost a 3 times greater or length of survival. Then when we get to the 8s here, that's sort of nearly 4 times. And then, as you emphasized as well, that when people start early, it's almost 5 times. So the data is very clear. And thank you for pointing out and sharing it was heterogeneous. And then, as you pointed out very well, not to give the deuterium depleted water a chance. And you definitely need to carry on for over 3 months. In terms of if somebody asked you how long should they carry on with the deuterium depleted water in a cancer situation, what would your reply be?
Oh, that's a good question. Very good. Thank you. So I would make two groups of people as it is in the table. Those who are in remission, we recommend consume DW 105 ppm for 2 months and another 2 months with 85 ppm. So it means there is a dose increase within that 4 months period, and they can repeat it that on the next year and the next year and the next year. And as they are getting farther from the diagnosis, they can keep a longer break between two cure of DW. So hopefully that would be the way to keep the patients in remission. And those who still had a cancer, and it depends, of course, on a lot of other parameters. What type of cancer? What is the size of the tumor? What is the stage of the patients? For example, lung cancer patients should start with 105 ppm, and they will receive the chemotherapy and they receive the other therapy, and they can keep it the 105 till the end of the chemotherapy. And when the chemotherapy completed, they can move and increase the pressure with the deuterium depletion. So continue with 85 ppm. The best if we can get a complete remission with the DW and the conventional therapy. If we get a complete remission, we can consider it as a tumor-free patient. At that time, keep drinking DW, and then they have a break. And don't waste so long. After half a year, start a shorter cure, increase the break, start another cure, and hopefully that way we can prevent the relapse. Those people who start DW consumption, even having a tumor.
Okay, that's great because I think also you very kindly prepared these slides, and there's more, isn't there? But is there anything else that you want to point out or say today? Because I think what you've just said is you've been very specific about what the data is saying. Is there anything else that you want to add or tell people what's the current or next study you're working on so that they can follow this deuterium and cancer research?
So what is important so the reason that we can get so big increase in median survival time that we are targeting a so-called submolecular regular system. So the research says that the cells are able to modify the deuterium hydrogen ratio, and that changes finally regulate the cell growth, regulate the gene expression. So the reason that we are so effective that we targeting the real regulatory system of the cell, the healthy cells and the cancer cells. And the cancer cells, when they are facing with the reducing deconcentration, they should adjust the metabolism of the cell day by day to the lowering the level. And this is very challenging for the cancer cells that can trigger radicals, and that radicals will trigger the apoptosis and finally the cure the necrosis of the cancer. So this is the reason that we are, and the DW can be so effective. This is not a cure-all. This is the simplest way to modify the DH ratio and keep the DH ratio at a low level in a cancer patients, and even we recommend for the healthy population, they should reduce the deconcentration with a 10-15 ppm, the average deconcentration, and that would reduce the incidence of the cancer.
Yeah, that's very important because some people are familiar with how deuterium can affect the mitochondria and the ATPase, but what you're talking about is the switch, these traffic lights of how the deuterium or the deuteron and the proton can act as a switch. And when there's too much deuterium in the ratio, the switch is it's going to be a cancerous state. And when the ratio of the deuteron to the proton goes down again, that's when it's correct cell division and growth. Did you just want to elaborate just briefly at the end on that pathway? Because some people might not be familiar with it, and you're better at explaining than me, but you did did go over all of this in the second podcast that we did with pictures and slides, but just to maybe close on that one. So there's more than one way in which deuterium is beneficial, well, sorry, is could potentially lead to cancer, because we know that mitochondrial dysfunction is important for cancer, but this switch that you've talked about, maybe if we just finish on that so people have got something else to consider.
Yeah, I guess it will be very strange for everybody that finally everybody every day synthesize about 0.3 liter deuterium depleted metabolic water. So in that case, the hydrogen in the water is coming from the carbon source. And the question is, what is the composition of the diet? Those who are covering the calorie intake mainly with carbohydrate, they will produce 150 ppm normal deconcentration of the metabolic water. Those who are covering the calorie intake mainly with the fat, that produce 118 ppm metabolic water with a deconcentration, and based upon what is the ratio of the fat and carbohydrate will determine of our deconcentration of the metabolic water produced by the mitochondria. So in a healthy cells, even the cell membrane process can increase the DH ratio, but the healthy cells, the healthy mitochondria produce deuterium depleted water. So they can keep the DH ratio at a low level. And this is the other key issue that everybody knows. One common feature of the cancer, the mitochondria function is damaged. So in the cancer cells, no deuterium depleted metabolic water production. It means no break in the system. So this is the reason that somebody, the mitochondria is damaged, no DW production in the cell. The cells very easily can lift up the DH ratio to the threshold, and that way the cell will enter and duplicate the DNA, and finally will be two new cells. And no break in the system, so the cancer will grow. And the other, maybe one of our last paper, so we followed whether the deconcentration can modify the gene expression. And we checked over 700 genes simultaneously. How can the deconcentration modify the gene expression? And we clearly showed that the higher deconcentration stimulated several hundred gene expression. All the genes which has a key role in the cell cycle regulation are activated at a higher DH level. So when we apply DDW to the cancer patients, it means lowering the D level in the body, we simultaneously inhibit the expression of hundreds of genes. And comparing with the drugs, they are targeting one gene and one gene product. But the DW consumption, we simultaneously can affect and inhibit all the gene expression, which has a key role in the cell cycle regulation.
So we'd say that deuterium depletion as a therapy would be called pleiotropic because it's interacting with multiple important pathways. And like even I'd probably say everybody knows, or everybody should know, mitochondria damage is key in cancer. You've also highlighted how many cell cycle genes that can be disrupted in a bad way if there's too much deuterium. And also then there's the switch for apoptosis or cell death that also has a link to H and D ratio. So I think it's a very interesting area. Just to finish off, in terms of when we talk about licensed drugs and things like that, what's the current status? I know it's a licensed pharmaceutical for animals, but what's the situation with humans, and what's the future of this deuterium depletion and deuterium depleted water as a recognized cancer treatment?
So the limiting factor is the funding from the very beginning. So we are waiting for investors, we are looking for investors, and we are waiting for pharma companies who are involved in the cancer drug development, and that should be the way to move forward, to start new clinical trials, prospective clinical trials. Next time we would focus on the glioblastoma, for example, where a very short period of time would be enough to prove the efficacy of DW. So the key issue is the funding, finding the investors or the pharma companies who are ready to collaborate with us and move forward, register deuterium-depleted drugs as a new cancer drug and integrate it into the existing therapy. So we are
Okay.
very open to communicate about this to move forward.
Oh, that's great because I think the way you presented that is this is all very serious and you're moving forwards and there are people potentially interested. If anybody's watching this and wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to contact you? In terms of protocols, you have a really good book, so people can read that. But in terms of scientists or anybody who wants to pair up with you with research, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Our company is called HYD LLC. So the www.hyd.hu is a scientific homepage of the company. The product is the Preventa, which is available. Yes, and I'm very pleased that people can buy the book on the Amazon deuterium depletion, and everybody can get access to the basic information to know and to learn about how to use deuterium depletion. I am on the LinkedIn. I am on the ResearchGate side. So today, it's not a big deal to find anybody in that world if they really want to reach us.
Oh, that's great because some people can be hard to contact, but because I've met you several times now, I know that you're very keen to be reached out to and reasonably easy to get hold of. Because I just want to emphasize to people that if somebody does have cancer and wants a protocol, is it better to read your book or who can you recommend that they talk to about a protocol? Just because there'll be a lot of people are interested in this subject, and I just wanted to clarify that there, just in case you got lots of emails about people asking you about protocols.
Yeah, if they ask, we try to give our best and recommend it, what would be the best way to use it.
Oh, great. Oh, I just wanted to make people who are listening or watching aware that that we've talked about protocols before in our previous interview, and I just want to end by saying that this happens quite a lot. People buy deuterium depleted water and drink it neat. So I just want to emphasize there is a protocol, and you don't want to just drink 5 parts per million or 18 parts per million deuterium depleted water neat. You need to dilute it because some people see the cost of it and then think you're meant to drink it neat. I just wanted to end there, and maybe if you could just close on that.
Yeah, so we are very happy and we are proud that we have a product on the market, but I know without getting a registered drug, most of the people will not get access. So it's just because the DW consumption is so effective, we need the science behind that, and we need the oncology behind that. Otherwise, we will not maximize the potential of the DW. And the other reason, of course, the price. So insurance company in Hungary cover 100% of the cancer drug, and most of the country is covered by the insurance company. And this is very important that those who are not afford to buy deuterium depleted water, they will have access. If we can register it, it will be part of the therapy, and the cost will be covered by the insurance company.
Oh, that's really important to know because even though it's, I'd say there are far more expensive cancer therapies that people can find on the internet. And I think the reason people, including me, should support you is that when you get it licensed, it means that people who can't afford it or are very sick will be able to get deuterium depleted water. I would just say, I'll just say on prescription or give it, because there's different medical systems in different countries, but the whole point of getting it registered is so that people who don't have the funds to purchase would have access to something that's not toxic, benefits them, and actually is going to give them a better quality of life and a longer quality of life. So have I summed up your mission properly?
So this is yeah. This is the only way to move forward, I guess, to get it and register it.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Because I think there's so much data that you've published, and the data is very strong as well. So I just want to thank you again for coming back onto the channel to talk about this. And I'm sure you'll be back again, and people like Dr. Borosh, with because there's so much new research coming out in deuteronomics now that the area of study is very serious, that people are hearing about it now. So it's a genuine bona fide area of scientific research. And that really excites me because deuterium's been stuffed under the carpet for too long now, and it needs to come out in the open. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you for your help.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.